All right, let's see. Oh my God. I just bit into that. It's so acidic. Oh my God, it's disgusting. Oh. Okay, the aftertaste I can taste is like an olive, but now I'm just going to need to go and put some chocolate in my mouth.
Welcome to my stone house here in Monsanto. I knew as soon as I saw it, I loved it. So I sold my house in the rear and bought my dream home in the heart of the countryside, with Monsanto looming on one side and the most beautiful mountain range on the other. And my new project of renovating this old stone house and rejuvenating the forgotten vineyard and orchard garden will begin.
My neighbour explained to me that I needed to put the olives in water, but they really should be in water for a month. And another friend of mine said that you need to change the water every day. So they've been here for about 10 days. So because I'm leaving tomorrow, I'm just going to try one and see. Maybe this one. Let's see. What are my plans for the vineyard garden behind me? Well, I want to have grapes growing here. I'd like to try and make some wine. My neighbour showed me that he has a vat thing that can make wine in. So I'd like to give it a go. I'm not sure how good these vines are anymore, so I am going to just wait and see this next year what actually happens with them before I dig them all up. Maybe I will dig some of them up, I don't know. And I'm not really sure yet what I'm going to do with this area. I think I want it to be looking pretty. So maybe I'm going to create some flower beds, or I'm not sure. If you have any ideas, let me know what you think. I was thinking that this area here would be a great area to have a chicken coop and maybe fence off an area here for them to have as a run, but also to let them out so that they can free range in this area here. But I will need to put another fence along here, and then I think what would be nice is actually to grow grapevines all along a fence here to give this area some privacy. This is the New Forest, where there are lots of beautiful wild ponies. Hello, bunnies. Taking a lovely walk in the New Forest, and what better thing to do on Boxing Day morning. it's a thing in the UK that on Boxing Day you all go walking with your dogs, the whole family's together. Good morning from Rye, which is a very old medieval village in East Sussex, and you can see some of the beautiful buildings just there behind me. There are some very beautiful buildings here. It's almost like you feel like you've stepped back in time a little. And there is about 10 pubs in this little town that you can walk around in maybe half an hour. Just look at this beautiful street. You have very old pubs here, and at the end is the beautiful church. I believe that this building here opposite was the old school. It's now a record shop. Can you believe that? You can go in there and buy records and CDs. And just down there is the entrance gate to the village. Today's park up is here at a leisure centre in Epsom because there is a whole lot of bad weather coming in tomorrow morning, well tonight actually, later today and all tomorrow, so I didn't want to drive in those horrendous conditions to come here, so I've come here and I'm literally 3 minutes from where the van needs to go for its service and MOT tomorrow. Today I have been hanging out in the Nissan garage showroom while I wait for the van to have its full service and MOT done. It's not actually had a service for 2 years because I hadn't actually done that many miles in it, amazingly enough. Today we are at the campervan place where I bought Lucy from, and she is currently having the habitation service done and a few things that need fixing inside. The area on the campsite that I am staying at in Sussex is all beautiful countryside. So I'm just off for a nice walk to stretch my back out, actually, because the last 2 days I've been sitting waiting for things to happen to the van. So it's not raining now, which is amazing. So yeah, just going for a nice walk. And you can see here, I think just over here is where there is like a pond, well, pond, river, pond, I think it's pond really, and it's pretty full because it's been raining a lot here in the UK. But it's so nice when you actually have some blue sky. Look at that. For those of you who are new around here, I thought I'd give you a bit of my backstory while I'm back here in the UK. It all started here in this very area in Sussex nearly 5 years ago, when I really didn't feel very happy or fulfilled in my life. And it wasn't because I didn't have a good job. I did. I had a good job. I had a really nice home here. I had separated from my husband a couple of years earlier and was living in a nice 3-bedroomed house very near to here, actually. And my children would come and visit me or stay with me every other week. And like I say, I had a good job, but I just didn't feel like I had any time really for me, for living life. All my money would go on paying the mortgage and paying the bills, and normal type of situation really. And I just needed a change. So it started by me watching videos of people in camper vans. And it was an idea that was put into my head by a friend of mine. He said to me, I'd love to travel across Europe in a camper van. And I'd always loved the VW campers. So I started watching these videos of people in camper vans and van life, and I thought, hey, that looks amazing. Freedom to go where you want, do what you want, cheaper, if I rented my house out, and and I never had a gap year when I was younger because it wasn't what we did. So I decided that I would buy a camper van and go traveling for a year. Now, I didn't know what was going to happen in that year. I just knew that it would be a life-changing experience. And it really, really was. So more about that a little bit later. This is where I have woken up. And there is a nice sunrise happening. And so to continue my story, after I had been traveling through Europe and Scandinavia in the van for about just over a year, that is when COVID arrived, and I happened to be in the UK. I just arrived in the UK, and the very next week we were in lockdown. And so I didn't have an opportunity to leave the country before the lockdown happened. So I ended up being stuck here in lockdown, and because my house was rented out, I didn't have anywhere to live. So I went back to my ex-husband's house, which was the family house, and he was staying with his girlfriend. So I stayed there for 3 months, and that was in the springtime, and I remember it being an amazing spring. It was so warm, and I remember sunbathing in the back garden in April. Can you believe that? We do have nice weather here in the UK sometimes. And yes, so then the borders opened at the end of June 2020. Was it? Gosh. Yes, so as soon as the borders opened, I left and headed towards Portugal. And the reason I had chosen Portugal is because I had visited there in the van previously, and as soon as I arrived there, I just had this feeling that I just loved the country, and the more time I spent there, the more I loved it. So I decided to go back there because I wanted to explore more if it was somewhere where I could live. And with COVID, we didn't know what was going to be happening, although that was very early days in COVID, so we definitely didn't know what was coming. But it truly was the best decision that I had made. And I ended up spending another lockdown in Portugal. So that was when nobody could really travel very far, and there was a lot of limits to what you could do and where you could go. Although in Portugal it was not the same as in the UK. Everything happened a lot later there, and it seemed to be a lot more relaxed than in the UK. So I was still able to travel around in the van for a lot of the time, but I did end up renting an apartment there for 7 months, and this turned out to be a very good decision because it meant that I could apply to be a resident just before Brexit happened. And I wanted to do that because I think I did know at that point that I wanted to make a home there. But even if I didn't, it was a good path to take because I would have the residency there in Portugal. And as long as I stayed there 6 months of the year, then I could live there. So that's the story really of how I ended up in Portugal. And after that, I stayed there and have made a home there. One of today's jobs is in one of my favorite shops, which is a DIY shop, and I am here looking at locks for the adega because in Portugal I couldn't seem to find anything that would really do the job. So I'm excited to see what I can find here. I ended up buying 2 things. This lock for the outside of the door, and now I've just realised I've forgotten to buy the padlock that will go in there to secure it. Okay, I'll probably have to come back again and buy a padlock. And then I have bought this one for inside the door to keep it locked and secure when I'm in there. So I think that hopefully these are going to work, but we won't see until we get back to Portugal. I went back and bought the lock because Why not do now what, yes, don't put it off. I was there at the shop and I had time, so I walked back in the shop and bought the lock. So there is one thing that I am asked a lot about and that I want to talk to in a life where you are stepping out from, I guess, the norm and following your dreams. And that is about fears. And we have so many fears when we make any changes in our life. And so for me, there was fears of when I left in the van, like, where am I going to sleep tonight? Because I wasn't actually going to be staying at campsites because I really didn't have that money to spend on campsites, so I knew I'd be wild camping. So yes, when I first started, it was, oh, where am I going to spend the night? And where am I going to find water? Where am I going to empty the toilet from the van? And how am I going to cope with driving around high mountain roads, because I have a fear of heights, and over tall bridges, because I wanted to travel through Europe and I wanted to go to Norway. And so the way that I dealt with all of my fears was to not let my thoughts run away with themselves, was to take one step at a time. So when I was on, for example, a high mountain road, then I would just be present in that moment and do whatever I needed to do to get myself through that moment. And normally that would involve singing to myself, talking to myself, that type of thing. And yes, as I did it more, it got easier and easier. I'm not saying that I still don't have a fear of driving around mountain roads with steep edges. I do, but I know that I can do that now, you know. So yeah, with fears, the only way to conquer your fears is to push through them. And actually, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. And in fact, you might actually be surprised with the outcome once you have done it, as I have been. So yes, I would say don't let any fears get in your way. People can throw fears in your ways. I mean, I had things like, how was I going to even afford to not have an income and travel for a whole year? And then, like, now I look at myself now and I think, wow, I haven't worked for 5 years. How did that happen? And how did I manage with that? And, you know, because I wasn't worried about how that was going to unfold, it just has unfolded in many different ways. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't let your fears stand in your way. If you have something that you want to do in your life, things on your bucket list, don't put them off until tomorrow. Look now at which one you want to achieve this year and start to make like small little steps towards it. It might be things like, I just want to jump out of an airplane. Well, start to look at where you can do it, how much it's going to cost, all those types of things. I mean, but also what I would say is, don't limit yourself, dream big. Because I started off going for a year out in a van, and now 5 years later I own a beautiful stone house in the mountains of Portugal. And this life that I'm living is a dream life. It's not one that I envisioned. I didn't know where I was going to end up, but I truly am living a dream life. And I'm not worried about, am I going to have enough money in a few years' time, even though I don't have a lot of money right now. I don't have money to keep me fed and everything else for the next 10 years actually. But I have learned that I don't need to worry about that, that I will take small steps towards various streams of different income. Like one is YouTube, for example, and it's all gonna it will work out. I know it will, because I believe in myself. So yeah, so dream big, and just start to make those tiny little steps. It's a new year, and yeah, who knows what could have happened for you at the end of this year, and I can't wait to hear. So if you're gonna do something or start to take little steps towards those things, then please let me know in the comments, and we can all be here to support you on that journey as well. I would absolutely love that.